In boxing, the punch is only the product. The real money is made long before the opening bell. It's made in the contracts, broadcasting rights, pay-per-view splits, sponsorships, promotions, rematch clauses, and most importantly of all, the story being sold to the public. No fighter understood that better than Floyd "Money" Mayweather. For most of his career, Floyd wasn't just called Money because he made a lot of it. He was called Money because he turned boxing itself into a business model. But lately, Mayweather's name has been back in the headlines for very different reasons.
This broke in news that Floyd Mayweather is suing Showtime, and he's alleging that he is missing over $300 million.
Lawsuits, allegations, shady advisors, missing money, and questions about what happens when a fighter earns more than almost anyone in sports history, but still has to protect his empire after the final bell rings. Welcome to Passive Gecko, where we uncover the stories behind the numbers. Join me as we delve into the economic forces that shape our world. This is not just another story of Floyd Mayweather. This is a story on the business of boxing. For many sports, the business structure is easy to understand. In the NFL, NBA, the Premier League, the league is the machine. The teams are the franchises. The athletes are cogs inside this massive machine. Boxing is different. There is no single league. There is no season. No one championship that everyone agrees on. No one company controlling the sport. Instead, boxing is fragmented. What you do have are managers, advisors, sanctioning bodies, streaming platforms, sponsors, ticket brokers. The list goes on and on. The chaos is what makes boxing so difficult to follow. But it's also what makes it so profitable for the few fighters who learn to control the machine. For decades, most boxers were not in control. They trained, they fought, they got paid, and everyone around them took a piece. The promoters sold the fight, the managers negotiated the deal, fees were collected, broadcasters and venues took their cut, the taxman was never too far behind, and let's not forget about the team. After all that, the fighter, the person actually risking their body, often walked away with far less than the public imagined. This is one of boxing's oldest stories. The poor kid becomes a fighter becomes a star, the star becomes a meal ticket, and by the time the career is over, the money has passed through too many hands. That was the system Floyd Mayweather was born into, but Floyd did something unusual. He studied the business side. Early in his career, Mayweather was promoted by Top Rank, one of the most powerful promotion companies in boxing. Top Rank had helped build stars. It knew the machine, it fostered relationships, and it had experience in the game. But Mayweather wanted more control. Not just more money, control. Control over the opponent selection, the timing, the promotions, the risk, and the brand. So he made one of the most important business decisions of his career. He paid to leave. That move changed everything, because once Mayweather was free, he was no longer just a fighter waiting for a promoter to build the event. He could become the event. That was the real genius of Floyd Mayweather's career. People talk about the shoulder roll, the defense, the undefeated record, the speed, the accuracy, and all of that matters. But from a business perspective, his greatest skill may have been understanding scarcity. Mayweather didn't fight too often. He didn't take unnecessary risks. He didn't give opponents leverage unless the money justified it. He didn't sell himself as just another champion. He sold perfection. The 0 in 50-0 became a financial asset. Every fight had a built-in question. Is this the night Floyd finally loses? That question sold millions of pay-per-views, and Mayweather understood something that many fighters never did. Fans don't always pay to watch you win. Sometimes they pay because they want to see you lose. That's what made Mayweather's villain role so powerful. He flashed cash, he showed the cards, he leaned into arrogance, he made people angry, he made people curious. People became emotionally invested. And emotional investment sells. In boxing, the fight is only half the product. The other half is feeling, hope, anger, pride, curiosity, nostalgia, and even resentment. Mayweather became a master at monetizing resentment. People bought the fight because they wanted to see the loud, rich, undefeated fighter humbled. That is the business of boxing at its highest level. By the time Mayweather fought Manny Pacquiao in 2015, the fight had become more than a sporting event. It was a global financial operation. Years of delay made it bigger. Years of arguments made it bigger. Years of fans demanding it made it bigger. By the time it finally happened, the fight was no longer just Mayweather versus Pacquiao. It was patience versus hype. And the hype won. Then came Conor McGregor. From a pure boxing perspective, Mayweather versus McGregor was strange. McGregor was a UFC superstar, not a professional boxer at Mayweather's level. On paper, it was a mismatch, but from a business perspective, it was perfect. McGregor brought the UFC audience, Mayweather brought the boxing audience. Both men understood trash talk, both understood spectacle, both understood that press conferences could be as valuable as the fight itself. That fight showed where combat sports were going. It was not just boxing anymore. It was boxing plus celebrity and social media. Not to mention the audience crossover, along with larger-than-life personalities and a hint of controversy. The entire sport changed. Suddenly, YouTubers could box. Influencers could sell pay-per-view events. Retired fighters could make millions in exhibitions. Legends could come back for nostalgia fights. And the line between sports and entertainment became blurry. Some fans hated it, but the money rolled in regardless. Because boxing has always been entertainment. The only difference is that now the quiet part is obvious. A traditional boxing fan might say, this ruins the sport. But the promoter looks at the numbers and says, people paid. Boxing does not always reward the best fighter. It rewards the fighter that people will pay to watch. That's why undefeated records matter. Trash talk matters. Rivalries matter. Social media matters. Fighters today have to think like media companies. A modern boxer is not just an athlete. He is a brand, a content machine, a negotiator, a risk manager, a promoter, and sometimes a corporation. Mayweather understood this better than almost anyone. But that brings us to the darker side of the story. Making the money is one fight. Keeping it is another. When people hear that an athlete earned hundreds of millions of dollars, they assume financial security is automatic. But large income does not automatically create wealth, especially when income is irregular, public, heavily taxed, and surrounded by people looking to take a cut. A fighter might earn $100 million from one event, but that doesn't mean that $100 million lands safely in a bank account and stays there forever. There are taxes, training costs, management fees, legal fees, promotional expenses, lifestyle costs, family obligations, security, travel, staff, entourage expenses, and often bad advisors. Boxing creates sudden wealth. Sudden wealth creates targets. And that's why the recent Mayweather headlines are so interesting. The public version of Mayweather is almost cartoonishly rich. The cash, the watches, the jets, the mansions, the nickname money. But the legal headlines suggest a more complicated reality.
So what he's saying that happened is that he's made $1 billion within his career in earnings, but he's saying he never saw any of it because of what he's alleging to be this like big financial fraud.
Even the most financially successful boxer of his generation still has to fight over contracts, advisors, investments. That doesn't mean Floyd is broke. Doesn't mean every rumor is true. But it does remind us that wealth is not just about what you can earn. It's about control. The control has always been the central theme of Mayweather's career. In the ring, he controlled the distance, he negotiated, he controlled leverage. In promotions, he controlled attention. In matchmaking, he controlled risk. But after boxing, control becomes harder because the opponent is no longer standing across from you under the bright lights. The opponent might be paperwork, a complicated investment, a tax bill, a business partner, a lawsuit, a contract signed years ago, or a person who was trusted with too much access. That is where the business of boxing becomes bigger than boxing itself, because fighters are trained to fight. They aren't always trained to read every financial document, audit every investment, question every advisor, understand every tax structure, or manage every business relationship. And yet, once they become successful, they are expected to operate like CEOs. That is the contradiction. Boxing can turn a fighter into a $100 million enterprise, but the fighter may still be the only irreplaceable asset in the company. If he gets hurt, the company stops. If he loses, the brand changes. If he retires, the income drops. And if the wrong people get close, the money can move faster than anyone realizes. This is why Mayweather's business career matters. He showed fighters what was possible. He proved a boxer could become bigger than the promoter. He proved that ownership matters. He proved that a fighter could build leverage, sell the event, take the villain role, and keep a larger share of the upside. But his current legal battles also show the next lesson. Making yourself a business is powerful, but it's also dangerous, because when you are the brand, everyone wants a piece of you. The old model of boxing was simple. The promoter controlled the fighter. The Mayweather model flipped that. The fighter became the promoter. Now, the new model is even more chaotic. The fighter is also the influencer. The press conference is content. The fight is now a social media event. The undercard is now brand building. And controversy is part of the marketing. That is why someone like Jake Paul matters, whether traditional boxing fans like it or not. He understood the Mayweather lesson. Attention is leverage. If you bring an audience, you bring value. If you bring value, you can demand better terms. This is the business model Mayweather helped perfect. But there is another side. There are thousands of fighters who never get rich. They sell tickets locally, they take hard fights for small purses, they pay coaches, managers, travel costs, and medical expenses. They risk their health without ever getting the financial upside fans assume comes from being a professional athlete. That is the uncomfortable truth. Boxing is the only sport where a single night can generate hundreds of millions of dollars, while many professional fighters still struggle to make a living. The business is massive at the top, but brutal at the bottom. And that might be the real story. Mayweather didn't just become rich because he was great. He became rich because he escaped the wrong side of the boxing business. He stopped being only the talent. He became the seller, the product, the promoter, the storyline. He became the reason people bought the fight. But even then, the story doesn't end with the money. Because once the lights go off, the fighter has to become something else: an investor, a wealth manager, a judge of character, a contract expert, and a protector of the empire. That may be the hardest transition in sports. In the ring, Mayweather was famous for not getting hit. But outside the ring, the punches come differently. They come through lawsuits, bad deals, business partners, taxes, rumors, and paperwork. So when we look at the latest Mayweather headlines, the easy question to ask is Floyd Mayweather broke? But the better question is, how does a fighter make that much money in the first place? And why is keeping it so difficult? Because the business of boxing is not just about violence, it's about leverage. Who has it, who loses it, who sells it, and who gets paid when the public finally buys it. Floyd Mayweather may be the greatest example of boxing as a business, because he showed the sport what it really was. A fight is not just a fight, it is a financial event built around emotion. And in that world, a fighter who controls the story controls the money, at least until the next fight begins. Thanks for joining us. Remember to like and subscribe. See you next time.